Hey everybody, welcome back to another movie review. Hope you guys been enjoying the content channel as of late. Just got done watching this and figured to put up a little review just for you guys. Because I've been wanting to check this out, but just never got time to actually checking it out. And now that it's available on rental for dirt cheap, actually, figured just now to dedicate some time to check this out. And well, finally checked it out and I'm going to do a review. That film that we're going to be discussing, probably briefly, is Ardman, which was directed and written by Halfdan Yeoman Tundle. I believe that's how you say their name. Making their directorial debut here. This stars Renate Reneshfiv. Sorry if I mispronounced her name. Maybe familiar with her work. Most notably starred in the film The Worst Person in the World, which I believe we've done a review for. Also, of course, made her leap also to doing some films here in the U.S., namely A Different Man, which starred Sebastian Stan, and as well as some other films here and there. But this is a isolative piece which follows a person named Elizabeth, which is played by Renate Rishnev. Again, sorry if I'm mispronouncing her name. And she is a parent to a kid named Ardman. And Ardman is, very, very young kid. They're both like super, super young kids, about like elementary school age. And she is called in for a school meeting because allegedly her son did something very, very, very inappropriate in the vein of actual potential sexual assault. And she gets brought into this meeting with the two other parents involved with their other son in the equation. They're also brought into this meeting, and the film showcases the meeting itself and the dynamics between the two parents, and then Elizabeth, and then how Elizabeth knows these people, the school staff themselves, basically giving you the whole 9 yards in terms of this entirety of this specific meeting between that of the staff and the parents themselves. And what follows is a depiction in my book is, before getting into that, it's, backing it up a little bit, like, essentially what unfolds is that of abstract ideas about the character state of being, that of Renate Rishev's character, and giving you some leeway as to who may or may not be telling the truth within these allegations being presented, and trying to insert some form of doubt into the viewer about who perhaps is telling the truth and who perhaps is lying. And I don't think, in my money, that is entirely the approach of the film. I think that there's a little bit more to it than that. And with that, I think that there is both a unique quality to the film, but also something rather shallow at the same time. And for my money anyway, now getting into how I see it, because ultimately there is an interpretive language that is presented. As I laid out, there's an abstract quality to the film that slowly but surely starts to reveal itself. It doesn't completely show its hand at the very beginning, but it gives you it starts to plant these ideas and ultimately blossom, very towards the end of the film. But for my money anyway, I feel that the film is actually a lot more blatant than some viewers may take it, because I feel that there might be a misjudgment to what the story itself is, because I actually took a glimpse while I was watching it, looking at how people were taking the film, and some people actually took the ending actually in a very, very different way, and to how I actually take it. And to further illustrate my opinion of it, the film, as it starts, is actually quite, bombastic, or quite like apparent, because there's, it's all quiet, and all of a sudden, bam, we come in, and she's driving real fast. You hear the car just, zooming through the streets, and then she says herself that she is not stressed. And what follows from that, in my opinion, is an illustration of someone's ignorance, and to that extent, their own narcissism. And the film itself, I believe, absolutely plays on that. And it's a rather apparent study in my book, because on one hand, you have a performance here which I think is really, really good. I think that she plays these qualities up quite expressively. Specifically, there's one scene, I think it's highlighted in the trailer, where where she starts to just break down, essentially starts laughing maniacally, and then eventually she starts to cry. That specific scene and how it is framed, and then this one character just pretty much tells what the audience is feeling, or at least to how I was feeling in that scene. It illustrates again someone's narcissism, their inability to actually see the truth, and to find any way possible to prolong the potential inevitable, or to find their way to get out of such a situation. And the abstract qualities of the film, I think, absolutely play on this as well, because there are scenes of her where she like dances in the hallways, and then some other men start to like kind of join her throughout the course of the film, and it kind of illustrates again this idea of her very seductive like behavior, and ultimately that of a witch type of figure, and again also is kind of giving an illustration of who she actually is. And at the very end of the film, I think, also gives you that idea where she talks about how it's not necessarily what you see, or not necessarily what you look into. It's about finding that middle ground, ultimately finding that space to where you can see that the person is actually okay. And then that quality, that statement, that is an illustration again about ignorance, about someone trying to be viewed in a very, very specific way. And I think that the film ultimately is that of, talking of ignorance and about narcissism. And for that, I think that it has a unique approach visually, and by acting, I think that there's something there to be commended. But I think that by knowing of that and seeing that play out, I think that at times it can be quite shallow, especially within its abstract, approach. I think that it can be a bit blatant in that regard. And for me, I feel like at times it could drag in that regard, knowing that is at least to how I take it, it's how I feel that the film is laying out its foundation. It feels at times a bit redundant. There's times where it's like, okay, I get this worship type of imagery that's again illustrative of her narcissism. I feel like at times it can be a bit vague in terms of the apparentness of who she's engaging with. Sometimes there's times where characters appear to be talking to people, and then they're not. But a lot of what it is being illustrative of, I feel, is quite apparent, and I feel at times it can just be kind of just, as is the character, kind of just cycling through the same sort of emotions and cycling through the same sort of thematic qualities, and providing less as a result. But as it stands, I mean, there are good things to it. I mean, we have a great performance at the center of it. I think that visually it's quite interesting, just by how the aesthetic, the literal tinting of the film, I found to be quite nice. It kind of echoes out of like the 70s type of framework, and the score as well also kind of reminds me of that, of like, like 70s types, like Suspiria, for some odd reason. For some reason, the score kind of reminds me of that film specifically for some odd reason. But I think that it is a fair depiction of a narcissistic type of person, and their ability to, like, ultimately, as the film, I think, as general, is about an illustration of a manipulation, how people can manipulate information, manipulate people, and I think that it does a fair job in that department, and gets a good performance to follow, even if you are ultimately rooting against that person. It's an interesting performance to see, especially how they just physically just kind of represent themselves at some points. It's rather interesting. But yeah, I think it's a decent piece. I wouldn't go as far as say that it's great, because like I said, I think ultimately it does kind of lose a lot of steam, mainly in its just cycling of this repeating almost the same sort of ideas and less so of getting to a deeper knowledge and really crafting a true mystery in my book. But I think it's okay at the end of the day. Good performance, good interesting visual qualities, and decent ideas, but it's pretty much the sum of its parts and not more than that. So those are my thoughts on Aardman. I think it's fine. I think it's a decent piece, but I don't think it's as interpretive as some people may think. And I think that it's more led by interesting aesthetics and interesting performances and less so to do with a fully realized thematic idea. It's just more or less just of a specific idea and just kind of sitting with that idea only. But yeah, those are my thoughts on Aardman. It's my little kitty over here. Definitely needs my attention right now, so I'm going to cut this short. But you guys know your thoughts on Aardman if you guys have seen it. Your thoughts on this actress if you guys are familiar with her work. If you guys have seen like films like The Worst Person in the World. Let me know all your thoughts in the comment section below. And that's going to be it for this video, guys. Thank you guys for tuning in. And until then, I will catch you guys in the next video. Bye.